We're going to be talking about the upcoming Nasdaq Lunar return. You can see it here off to the side, but we're expecting the Nasdaq to go up 1 to 2% during this lunar period cycle. So in interpreting this chart, we always want to start with the planet Vader. It's down there in the 4th house in the sign of Pisces. We want to look at all the aspects to Vader. There are many of them in this chart, but the one that stands out and is most obvious would be Jupiter up there in the 8th house, on the 8th house cusp. This is making Jupiter very strong, and it's squaring Vader, which is the hardest aspect you can get besides the opposition. And it's showing us that the Nasdaq is going to go up this lunar period versus going down. And by the time you see the rest of this video, you'll understand this one aspect, how it's sort of won out of the others. Also, Mars is making a sextile. This is positive. Mars is up there in the 6th house on the 7th house cusp. And then also, Vader is making an inconjunct to the moon. Next, we want to look at the rulers of Vader. Well, Vader's in the 4th house, and it's in the sign of Pisces. Well, the 4th house is ruled by the moon, and Pisces is ruled by Neptune. You can see the moon up there in the 9th house. It is actually trining Neptune, and this is a really good sign. This is good, very strong upward movement for the Nasdaq during this period. The problem here is that the moon opposes Pluto, and it squares Mars. These are both difficult aspects. But what you'll see here is that the moon aspects are kind of balancing out. We have those two aspects that are difficult, but we also have Jupiter that's making a sextile to the moon. And like we already talked about, Neptune is trining. So those are kind of offsetting each other. And then Vader's also making an inconjunct like we talked about earlier. Next, we want to look at Neptune. It's there in the 5th house in the sign of Pisces. Neptune, like all these planets, are making lots of aspects. We already talked about the trine to the moon up in the 9th house, but Neptune is also making a sextile to Jupiter. This is very strong, very good. On the negative side, Neptune is making a 30-degree aspect to both Mars and Vader. This is very tough, very difficult. And then Neptune is also making a sextile to Pluto. This is very strong, very positive. All we're getting from this is that they're all sort of canceling each other out. So moving on, we want to look at the 8th house cusp. We can see it at 29 degrees of Taurus. And we already talked about how Jupiter is making a conjunction to that cusp. There's a bunch of really good aspects to this cusp. You can see Neptune down there in the 5th house, 29 degrees of Pisces. It is making a sextile to that cusp. And then Pluto in the 3rd house making a trine. And then the moon up in the 9th house making another sextile. These are all very positive, very strong. This is really, really good. But just like everything else we've seen in this chart, there's some contradictions. Like Mars is making a 30-degree aspect. Very tough, very difficult. This will likely mean a violent period during this cycle where the Nasdaq is going to head downward. Pretty fast, pretty strong. The Nasdaq, like all indexes, they go down faster than they go up, but we're going to see that during this lunar period. And then also Vader in the 4th house is squaring that cusp. This is also very difficult. And so you have this really positive balanced out by the really negative, like we've already talked about. And lastly, we want to talk about the ruler of the 8th house cusp. You can see at 29 of Taurus, we want to look at the planet Venus. Venus is making some really difficult aspects here. It's squaring Saturn down in the 5th house. It's also making an inconjunct to Ceres in the 3rd house. The Saturn square is really tough, really difficult. The bottom line here is everything we've looked at so far, everything is sort of countering something else. So this lunar period, the Nasdaq is going to be flat. It's probably going to be up 1%, possibly 2%. But that's it. So that's what we can expect from this lunar cycle. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.